All right, Big Man. Today is Monday. It is October 31st. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. It's Halloween, Snake Draft Monday. Very different draft for you today. Very, very different. Chief and Dave are sitting out. In for them are KenJac and Robbie, and our guest today is Richard Roeper. Richard, you've been on the show before. We talk movies with Jeff Lowe. Welcome back. I'm happy to have you on a draft. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. We had a blast last time, so let's do it again.
Yeah, this is your first time on a draft, and a
Yep.
little different than last time. It was a laid-back conversation last time. I warned you a little bit. The snake draft fans are a little rabid, they're a little crazy, so buckle up a little bit.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
KenJac, how are you?
I'm doing good. Very happy to be here alongside a legend like Richard and a semi-legend like Robbie, let's say.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah, I mean, pop punk star Robbie Fox. But yeah, super excited because horror is a genre for me where my constant take on the genre has been like it's super top heavy, and the top 5% of it is like incredible, and then 95% of it pretty awful with not a ton of in between. So like I'm really excited to talk about the top because I'm really passionate about them.
Yeah, Robbie, how you feeling?
Great. I was just on a snake draft, and I'm happy to go kind of back to back, not literally, but I was on it pretty recently. And October is always just a full-on Halloween movie month for me. Doesn't have to be horror. I like, the Beetlejuices and the Edward Scissorhands of the world where they're not horror movies, but they're still kind of in the Halloween category.
Absolutely.
So I love this.
Yeah, very, very quick turnaround. And yeah, so today is the horror movie draft. I think we should be a little liberal with horror, but we should also we should talk it out, because where do you stand between thriller and horror? Does anyone have a very strong line between that? Does anyone want to take that?
I don't know. I have a couple on my list that I feel like could be thrillers.
Okay.
I feel like it's really subjective and it's up to the viewer. Look, listen, for me, Four Weddings and a Funeral is a little bit of a horror movie because of the four weddings, and I've never been married. So, it's what you bring to the table, guys. But no, seriously, that's a great question. And I think, you could look at some of the supernatural movies, and I want to get into titles in case someone's going to draft something, but that are more psychological thrillers, but sometimes scare the hell out of you. So you could call it a horror movie then too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like anxiety and fear can, I think, are hand in hand too, and like so that really plays into like what you would define as like a thriller versus horror. But I think as long as you feel a genuine sense of like fear or dread, like you can argue its case at least.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Carl, how are you feeling going in? This is totally different cast here.
We're surrounded by experts, so thank you guys for your time. Robbie puts on a clinic every time he comes on a snake draft. Now, a lot of people think it's because of expertise. The underlying reason is because Robbie knows the people, and Robbie's a man of the people. And I think that's why he's able to just dominate time and again. Also an expert. And the other thing too, is I think when we talk about like getting snake draft guys, we also like when it's not an expertise, when it's something they're passionate about, like outside, like Jeff Lowe doing chain restaurants, for example. But this is an instance where we're just surrounding ourselves. We know that Robbie loves movies. We know KenJac's like a movie buff, obviously. Rich, what do you want me to say? We're surrounded by experts. So for me, I'm excited to be here. This is something I like. We'll find out if I like it enough to hang in this conversation. I think I can do okay. I did enough prep work. And then Eddie, as far as like horror movie fans, like you're one of the all-time greats. Is it your favorite?
I love them. I love them. And going through the list, I mean, everyone has their movies they haven't seen. I've got a few glaring omissions that I haven't seen. I almost did Miracle a few and watch a couple last night, but I didn't because I knew I'd get shit, and I knew that people would never let me hear the end of it. So they will get drafted, I'm sure. And when they come up, I will admit the ones that I have not seen. But yeah, I didn't do it.
I'm in the same category as you, though. There's definitely some classic ones that I've missed out on. I love horror, but I wouldn't consider myself like a horror expert.
Yeah.
Just to Carl made a really good point, too, about, this genre. And again, I'm not going to get into titles, but if you look at back the beginning of film, guys, I'm talking like the silent era, some of the greatest films made in the very, very early stages of cinema were horror movies because it creates such a visceral reaction as opposed to a lot of other genres, and it still does. People ask me Do I see the movies at home? Do I see them in a theater? It depends. I get a lot of links to movies, but there's a couple of genres that I love to see with an audience in advance. You know, a great comedy, obviously the Marvel and the superhero movies, but the horror movie, that is something that is so great to see with an audience, where you have that big scare, then the big cathartic laugh where everybody kind of like, okay, everything's okay. And the jump scares. It's so great. That's a great shared experience.
My theater, I went to a screening of Devotion yesterday. I'm not sure if you've seen that. But I was so excited to go see it in Dolby. I'm like, this is gonna be great. Gonna be a bunch of like people there, gonna be excited about it. It was me and one other person who was a half hour late, so we had to wait for him to start the whole thing. But that was a fun time. Good movie there.
If I have a screening and someone's a half hour late, they're going to be into the movie 30 minutes after it started. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, let's get the order underway here, Harry. So our producer Harry Richard has a number 1 through 5 behind his back. Which number do you think it is?
3.
Yes.
It is. All right. So you pick your order here, Richard. Do you want to select first overall? Do you want to be number 5? Do you want to pick second? Do you want to pick third, fourth, fifth, whatever you want?
I want to pick 4th.
All right, 4th. All right. Let's go. Carl, you're second. What do you?
2.
No.
KenJac,
Do 4.
No.
Robbie,
1. I'll do 1.
Yes.
I'll go second.
All right. To me, 1 through 3. I'm gonna say 1.
No.
Carl,
2.
Yes.
What's available? Second. So 3 and 5 are available.
1, 3, and 5 are available.
I'll take the 5 spot. I'll take the 3.
I hope you're more decisive with your picks, Carl, because if not, we're going to be here till.
There's a lot here. No, I know. I apologize. This is not a carryover. I do have a very decisive list.
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
All right.
KenJac, 1 or 2.
Do 1.
Yes.
I'll go. It's gonna suck having first overall because a lot of really good movies are gonna get taken up in the turnaround. But I'll go with 1 overall because I really want my 1 overall.
All right. So KenJac, we'll say 1 overall, and that leaves me in the 5 slot. So the order is KenJac, Robbie, Carl, Richard, Eddie. Before we get things underway here, I do want to talk about our friends at Game Time.
Yes.
So yes, you guys know the drill by now. Game Time is the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Carl, you've been hitting up the playoff games, my friend.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Game Time's been a reliable source. Game 5 in Philadelphia with Smitty. Just a bucket list experience, getting in there, getting close with Game Time, sitting by the field in the action, being in the rain with the Philly fans. Super reliable. It's the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. And then once you get it into the rotation, you realize that they consistently have the lowest prices. So now we're using it. I'm going back to Philadelphia, and one of the big questions is, what are we doing for tickets? It's like, we're using Game Time. That's the biggest question, is the easiest question to answer right now. We're using Game Time.
There's just no reason to have like a bunch of other ticket apps. Just use Game Time. It's created by fans for fans. It's a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last minute deals on tickets at sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. If you haven't given Game Time a shot yet, we don't know what you're waiting for. You guys are going to love this app. We've had tons of Barstool fans using it. Hit us up on social about the great deals they're getting. Download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, and redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
All right, let's get things cooking here. Number 1 overall, you are on the clock. KenJac, let's hear it.
All right, I have to go with a movie that I think, like Richard was talking about, just like visceral reaction type of horror movie. One that, like, when I watched, I was probably like 13 years old, something like that, and it scared the bejesus out of me. It got that gut reaction, and it still does. And I wish more movies were like this in its dedication to practical effects, but only the great John Carpenter could do that. It's The Thing. I think The Thing is one of the scariest movies ever made. I think as far as like cast wise, obviously Kurt Russell, insanely good in every movie, but I'm awesome in that as well. And I think just the idea of being isolated there with a creature like The Thing, which is all those practical effects and like all those things that, like, they don't look quite real. It's like uncanny valley type of like
Mhm.
effects with shit being like ripped off of, like when the dude puts his arms in and gets his hands ripped off, like stuff like that to me is so much scarier than anything you could ever design in CG at like period. And so I'd go with that. And I'm hopefully I'll get another John Carpenter on the turn, but I just need to pick it. It's one of my favorites.
The Thing. Robbie, have you seen The Thing?
I did. That was actually a quarantine watch for me.
Mm.
I
It's
hadn't seen
perfect
it.
for a quarantine watch, actually.
Yeah, it really was. I hadn't seen it till, COVID struck and everything, and I started going through some classic movies I had never seen. And that was one where I watched it on like a cold winter night, and it was awesome. I loved it.
Mhm.
Does it hold up, Richard?
It's a great pick. They did a remake that
Stunk.
was not even worth discussing, but for a lot of the reasons Jack mentioned, those great practical effects. Robbie mentioned the quarantine is a perfect way to watch it too, because the isolation, so many things. Carpenter obviously is a master. And again, I don't want to mention titles, but when we're done with this, or if people want to look between about 1973 and 1983, that was the golden age of modern horror films. There were about 20 classics, a lot that I'm sure are going to be mentioned here. It was a really great time to go to the movies and get the bejesus scared out of you. And the thing is, that's a great pick.
All right,
Carl,
are we
you got
ready for our
anything?
second pick? Or yeah.
Yeah, you got anything, Carl, on The Thing?
Great poster.
All-time poster.
Fact,
yeah.
That's true. It's true.
Poster. All right, Robbie. Yeah, we could do it. Number 2.
So I don't know if KenJac was hoping to get this John Carpenter movie on the turnaround, but I have to do it. I have to go straight up original Halloween. This is the one for me where I come back to it every single October and I have to rewatch it. It's such a good movie that it spawned like 5 separate cinematic universes where they're just trying to recapture the magic of the original. And I think it's perfect because it's not so gory. And it's like you could show this to a kid as their first horror movie and it could get them enthralled in the genre. And, you go deep after that. So this is like, it's probably my favorite horror movie of all time.
It's a great pick, Robbie. Haddonfield, Illinois. I went looking for it back in the day. And then if you watch closely, you can see the palm trees of California and a couple of the scenes there. They shot it there. But I agree with you. And they've done it, as you mentioned, they've done all these sequels. It was the one thing I did like the David Gordon Green, when he revisited it, the Halloween franchise, he had the characters commenting about the original going, wait a minute, only like 5 people were killed and he's famous, but that's what makes it so great. It's about 45 minutes into the movie, I think, before we get the first kill, which made it seem so real. And it's a great pick.
Yeah, movies that made us episode about Halloween was fascinating. I thought the whole, I forget the name of the man who produced it. He was like a rookie producer, just gave John Carpenter a shot. And he was saying how like what was so genius about it was that it was, I think he called it the horror of the mind, where it's like, because so much of it at first is unseen, it's just you making up what is so scary in your own head, which is scarier than anything they can physically show you. And I think so many great shots in that. Like I think they used very early Steadicam for the POV walk, I think, through like the house. Amazing movie, great soundtrack, which obviously John Carpenter did as well. Just multi-hyphenate, amazing.
Dude,
guy.
even just like I find myself just watching it and just kind of just nerding out on just the exterior shots of like the cobblestone corners and just seeing the walk home that they did, and it just the schoolyard, everything is just so cool about it. And like you said, you see the palm tree shots, and they did the Ringer did a great series about the history of Halloween. I think it was probably 5 years ago now. And the music of it, it really is perfect. I saw it in theaters a couple of years ago, and it's awesome. I was sneaky hoping you would take 5th overall because I was going to take Halloween. So
and it was really done on a low budget. You guys might know the famous story. The original Michael Myers mask is a William Shatner mask, right? That was bought at a gas station or something, and they just tricked it up a little bit.
We
actually
interviewed.
Yeah,
we interviewed William Shatner the other day, like a couple weeks ago. And we asked him about that, and he was just like, "I had no idea what was happening, but after the fact, I was happy because it made more money for me because the people wanted to buy that mask, and I think he got some sort of like royalty out of it." He told us that story, and about a time he was doing a one-man play on Broadway and he shit his pants, which I didn't. Unsolicited answer from the great William Shatner.
William Shatner, who knew?
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Oh boy.
No, I mean Halloween's obviously a first rounder, clear cut.
Yeah.
All right, Carl, you're up.
Man, there's huge chalk here. Ed, huge chalk. But there's also like my generation's probably most memorable and I got to take it. Because I think, do I want the better draft? Do I want the chalk? You know what? Fuck it. I'm taking the chalk. I'm taking The Shining, 1980, Jack Nicklaus. Like, because that absolutely scares the shit out of me. The two twin girls.
Jack
There
Nicklaus
are plenty
in-
of
Jack Nicklaus. Yeah,
Jack Nicklaus in The Shining.
Oh, when he
is
took
funny.
out that 7-iron, man, and
No,
said,
that- you
"Here's
know-
Jackie." Oh, that scene, deleted scene.
I know that's a moment for me, guys.
It's
Gold
fantastic.
jacket, green jacket. Who gives a shit? Good bounce back.
That's
Well, The
great.
Shining is no, Carl. That's a great
I
pick.
lost the
You
Zoom.
know,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, you're talking about Stanley Kubrick, and of course, the stories about the making of it are almost as horrific as the film because he puts everybody. You know, poor Shelley Duvall is still dealing with PTSD from making that movie. But when you talk about the cinematography and the little girls and all of that stuff, it's again kind of a slow build. You know, when you watch that movie, it's not like boom, 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 boom. Kills every 5 minutes, but it's scary as hell.
Yeah, he
Another,
also
like-
grew up with like a scary dad too. That was kind of like a
Jeez.
more of a thriller. That's just
More
a shot at
present.
my old man. He's a good guy. Okay, that was also the first I remember now personally. You'd be like, I think it was like junior high, and that's go to the video store, and a couple of the boys and a couple of the girls are going to rent it. We're going to watch it together in the basement because this is supposed to be something really scary. Now, I was born in '87, so obviously it came out before me. The twin girls, and then also Kubrick. It was like trippy. There's like very trippy, weird scenes. And for the rest of my list that I have together, there's nothing that really even comes close to this from like a scary standpoint. I also want to, and this isn't any shade at like that time period. Just the fact that it was made in 1980, like makes a movie scarier to me. Like there's just something about the way it's filmed and the way it comes across. It's just like a very creepy setting.
Yeah, and the tricycle girl, like that's
Bloody
Classic.
hallway alone is like that gave me nightmares for weeks.
Yeah.
It's incredible
Yeah.
stuff. And that's another one, almost like with The Thing too, where you're isolated in this icy environment, and if something about that is just so much more scary because you just can't escape it.
mhm.
Hey, do you know how many horses they killed for all that blood?
It was an insane amount. No, it was.
Jesus. But that's the other thing.
It's a joke.
To Carl's point, yeah. First of all, your dad's on line one, and now the anti-cruelty people are on line two. But to Carl's point too, the great thing about when their movies are either made back then or set in that time period, you take technology pretty much out of the equation. Where now every horror movie, someone has to lose their signal. They're all walking around in the woods. Oh, I can't get a signal. And they can get online and immediately. There's great, even in again, not necessarily horror movies, but a lot of thrillers. The scene where someone goes to the library, gets the microfilm, and finds out that the nanny was once this nurse who killed 16 patients in the mental institution. All that kind of stuff just makes it makes it more horrific because you're more trapped as you are in The Shining, as you are in The Thing. You can't just get rely on technology to get you out of it.
You have no armament as far as like information goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like we can instantly access any information we want in modern horror, but no, we can't. So,
yeah, exactly.
In those era anyway.
Yeah.
Was it surprising for my uncle Jack Nicholson to do this movie at the time, or was he like getting into this genre? Because like I'll just use you an example from my generation that probably shouldn't touch here, like the way Pesci did Home Alone, and people were like, "Oh, what's Pesci doing that?" Like, was that surprising, or was it different because
it was because it was Kubrick, because it was Stanley Kubrick, who was already considered one of the greatest directors of all time, going all the way back to movies like Paths of Glory in the 50s. So that's why Jack Nicholson signed up, because it was Stanley Kubrick.
It's crazy
watched
how
that the other
many
day.
like specifically iconic shots are in this movie too.
Yeah.
There's like maybe a dozen shots where you're like, oh, that's one of the most famous shots in the history of movies.
Yeah.
And they're just from this
That
movie.
you see Robbie duplicated dozens of times after that by directors, which is fine. It's, I think it's great. That's how you learn. So, but you're absolutely right. Probably as many as any film in any genre.
Oh, strong three so far. All right, Richard, you're on the clock.
All right. This would have been my first pick. This is the movie, I think, guys, that when you see the polls through the years, the critics polls or the surveys or whatever is often listed as the scariest movie of all time. I speak of The Exorcist from 1973, which again, is what, they now call it elevated horror. They didn't have that term back then, but it is, it was based on this hugely successful novel and brilliantly directed. And for someone like myself, who went to, Catholic school growing up. So, that all that kind of stuff was kind of, part of the lexicon and the life. You'd hear stories about real life exorcisms taking place or somebody being possessed. So, and again, you talk about, some amazing practical effects and tricks, the spider walk and things like that. Poor Linda Blair, geez, who's fantastic. I don't know if you guys have ever talked to her. She's fantastic. She's done a lot of great movies. She's done, we could do a whole Jailhouse segment one day and talk to Linda Blair about all those movies like Chained Heat or whatever. But The Exorcist, to this day, and you want to talk again, Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield is the theme from The Exorcist, which he had actually composed before. And then somebody from The Exorcist said, oh, you think it was written for the movie, and it wasn't. But that actually became like a #1 pop hit after the movie came out. Now think about that. In the early 70s, they'd be like, all right, that was Tiny Dancer from Elton John. Here's the theme from The Exorcist. And then you play the whole 3-minute song on AM radio. But yeah, that's always been my pick of the scariest movie of all time. And if you haven't has anybody not seen it here in the group?
This is one of them for me.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
This is what I was talking about.
All right, Eddie, put it on your list.
Yeah.
This is it. So like you bring that up, Catholic schoolboy. Yeah, it wasn't like I went to like an overly school where it was like I grew up, going to bed at 7 p.m. or anything like that. But it was just like a weird thing where, do you agree with me, Carl? It was like, like, I don't know. Like,
okay. Yeah. Well, the first time I saw it, I was in 7th grade and I had just started dating a girl in 8th grade who went to the public school. And that was like, we're in the basement with the public school 8th graders. And I saw and was like, this is messed up stuff. Like, this is not anything. So to support Eddie's point a little bit. Yeah. It was in the other thing too. This falls into the same category. It's just inherently scary that it was made in 73. Like, I just feel like they were willing to just do weird. It's just it's just creepier. I don't know. And KenJac brought it up too a little bit with the thing where it's scarier to use the special effects. I agree. The introduction and the more CGI, like there's a clear stopping point, I think, on my list and a clear like reason why stuff is scary.
And, Carl, when it came out, it was like built-in publicity because first of all, the Catholic archdiocese was banned, don't see this. We were actually told not even to read the book, which of course meant someone then stole it from the nearby drugstore and we read it in the playground. But then you'd get all these stories about people supposedly fainting at The Exorcist. And then, they would, and who knows how much of it was real or something. There'd always be an urban legend about somebody died of a heart attack at The Exorcist. And then the theater owner started doing things like saying, we are closing the doors 5 minutes before the start of the movie. No one's able to enter after it has started. You must see it from the beginning. You can't walk in. So there were all these things, and probably most of it was just, urban legend, but it just fueled the fire for people wanting to see it. When something's banned to this day, people are like, oh, I got to see it now. Right.
Exactly. I like how you mentioned elevated horror too, because there was an interview with John Carpenter pretty recently where they asked him like, hey, do you know what elevated horror is? Are you familiar with the phrase? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then they reference a couple of like, well, I can't name them, but elevated horror movies. He's just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that's just John Carpenter. And I love that.
That's great. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exorcist. That's another first rounder. All right. It's to me.
You haven't seen it, Ed?
Still can't believe it.
I'm just kidding. All right,
that was one of them. That was one of them. Tough, man. There's so many good ones.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm gonna go with the one that I know is not gonna make it back to me for sure. So I'm gonna go with Scream. Kevin Williamson, another legend of the genre. Ghostface, another iconic character, and I think it's I think the difference between Ghostface, while he may not be the most iconic monster, and I'm not going to name other movies, I do think his movie is better than some of the other monsters, if that makes sense. So that's why
Agreed.
I'm choosing Scream as a movie as a whole, and that's why I think it's a stronger pick as rather than some of the other ones. So I like Scream here. I think the twist was great. I think having multiple killers was
Spoilers.
What'd you say?
Spoilers. Whoa.
Hey.
1996.
Yeah.
This kind of goes
Yeah.
back to what Carl was saying. This is a movie in the 90s, but again, you think about the fact if that movie came out today, there's no way we wouldn't have found out what happens in the first 5 minutes. It would have been leaked all over the place. But when people went to see that movie and they marketed, Drew Barrymore did all the publicity and everything, so everyone thought she was the star of the movie. And then she's not all of a sudden. And that goes back to, again, I don't want to mention another movie, but there was a classic horror movie there. A main character gets killed. But I mean, and at the time too, the horror genre kind of was not in the greatest place. So this kind of reinvigorated it, with this knowing movie about horror movies. And Eddie, you're absolutely right about Ghostface, because that instantly became a hugely popular Halloween costume and still is almost 30 years later.
I would go as far to say, like, as with Halloween costumes go, like the Scream mask is like the face of Halloween, in my opinion.
It
like,
may be.
You want to talk about like I don't think the Michael Myers mask is like, I don't think there's many other ones from even any of the horror movies you mentioned that are. It's just like that is the face, that ghost face is the face of Halloween, at least to me.
Yeah.
When if you ever go to like any sort of
and it's a license for people to kind of be mischievous on Halloween. If you wear a Michael Myers mask, people think you might be a little twisted.
Yeah.
But if you're a ghost face, it's like, okay, that's funny. You got a sense of humor. Okay. And then they can run around and do stuff and blame it on Ghostface.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spawn some all-time parodies as well. It is a parody of some horror movies in a way, but then you get a parody of Scream, and it's like the jokes, the commercials, everything that have come from it. It's definitely like one of the biggest. It was one that I didn't see till last October. This was
cool.
Last October for me. And I didn't know the twist in the beginning. It had been so far past 96 that people stopped talking about the twist, and I got it. Yeah, I got it fresh. So it was
that's awesome, Robbie. That's cool.
What'd you think? Yeah, you liked it?
I loved the first one. I loved the second one. They put out a sequel this year, I think. Sorry, shouldn't be mentioning that. I like Scream a lot.
It's okay, and you do mention that, and then it goes off a point that Richard mentioned as well. I mean, we know that there are future ones. They did have to do rewrites on a bunch of things because shit kept leaking in those, right? Like there was, So it's a movie that just, what's in its right time frame. So makes it all the more better. But yeah, Scream's legendary, and it's lived on. So, and on what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Well, I just want to say that was the one I was in between for 3 and Scream. I took a chance that it would be there on the wraparound on the scariest, because I don't know, like scariest wise. I would say, so I do applaud it. It's just a tremendous pick to me. I think it's just a generational classic. Wes Craven too. They re-released it. They brought it back into theater. That was like the coolest thing, because I was too young to go see it when it first came out, and then like a couple months came by, and they were like, all right, we're gonna put it back out again before December. So this is just leading back to like there were just crazy different marketing tactics back then as opposed to what we know now as we talk about some of these movies. Scream's definitely at the top of that list for me and my experiences. And also the girls in that movie, probably just an unbelievable cast of beautiful girls for our age as like a 12-year-old boy. Great cast.
You were Pee Wee Hermaning in that theater.
I was very horny in that movie. That was just a perfect, that was a clear intersection of like, don't kill her, I like her.
That's a fact. And the only thing I wish they nailed a just some type of a score, that they don't have that the other ones do, because they got like, what's your favorite scary movie? They got that quote that some of the other ones do. No,
that's the wrong one. Yeah, hey Sid. No, but he does say that. He does say, hey Sydney.
Yeah.
He does say, hey Sydney, do you want to play? Never mind.
All right, I'm up again because it's a snake. And I'm gonna listen. This one, and I think this applies, but if you guys want to debate this, we can. But I'm sticking with the twist, and I'm gonna go with the Sixth Sense.
I think that applies. It was on my draft board.
I had Sixth Sense as the first rounder. If you could draft it, only first time you've seen it, Afterwards, I have it as a 4th round grade.
It's like I don't know if
You know, that's interesting though, because I actually, I mean, I kind of come from this from a different perspective since I, analyze these things for a living. But sometimes it's kind of cool to go back and watch something with the sixth sense and see all the clues, and see the the color red and how it's used and things like that. But first of all, yeah, Eddie, it's absolutely a horror film. I mean, it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And people, if people go back and you think of all the I see dead people thing and that great reveal, but remember, there's this whole side plot with the little girl. It's Misha Barton, by the way, who went on to do a lot of other stuff. Who's that Munchausen thing where the mother's poisoning her. And that stuff is almost scarier than the main plot. That side plot is absolutely horrifying and chilling.
Yep. It's one of those things where, and that's why it gets slept on for a horror movie, I think, because you could be folding laundry and some of these ghosts that he would see, whether it's the person, the girl throwing up, or the lady who attacks him in the tent, or I think that was the same one. Sorry, but the woman in the kitchen, or the kid who shot himself. They're like some of the scariest fucking people in like horror history, I swear. So I love this movie and the twist and everything, all the elements to it. I think it's a great movie.
And everybody talks about Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis, one of his best movies, but Toni Collette as the mother should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress, guys. I mean, the moment when she realizes, I'm getting chills talking about the moment when she realizes in the car that her son really does see things, that he's not just got a psychological issue. That the moment she realized that, it's just brilliant acting. I mean, it's just amazing.
She should be in everything. She is one of the
She's
best.
Great actor.
Like I'm not going to name something else, but she is. She is the best.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder, Eddie, do you know that she's Australian?
I did not.
Get out of here.
Gets people by surprise a lot.
Toni Collette has an Australian accent.
Yeah, I never realized it until I watched her in some space movie with Anna Kendrick a while back, and she had an Australian accent. I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. And then I looked her up, and I'm like, oh.
It was like when Idris Elba came up and people saw him, and the first time he was at an awards show, and he's like, "Oh, thanks, mate." And it was, what the hell is he doing a British accent for? Oh, he's British.
Yeah.
Stringer Bell's a character. That's not what.
He's an actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Sixth Sense. Anybody not see it?
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Great movie, great experience. Just almost so good that like M. Night Shyamalan was destined. He had to come down from that.
Years.
That
it's almost not his fault.
Such a good.
Agree. Yeah.
Got years of goodwill from that into, I think, a lesser degree, Unbreakable, which I like that movie a lot.
I loved it. But I agree with Carl. It's like one of the most spectacular debuts. He had done some smaller things, but that was his main feature debut of all time. I mean,
he
had
a full career on twists.
Yeah. And then when you're called the next Spielberg on the cover of Newsweek magazine, after your first movie, that's a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Tough. Yeah, he was Freddie Adu, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's a fair comparison.
I mean, Ricochet, Freddie's,
That's a very fair comparison.
You're right.
All right, Richard, you're up.
I'm up. Okay, guys, I'm going to go back to the 1970s, and I got a feeling that maybe one or two of you haven't seen this movie. It's called The Omen from 1976.
Terrifying. That little boy.
And then here's the thing. It's like movies where, and again, we don't want to get into titles, but movies where kids are in peril. The only thing that's scarier is when the kid is scary, and in The Omen, if people don't know, basically it's got Gregory Peck and Lee Remick, two great actors from the 50s and 60s and 70s who were, they adopt this child. And you want to talk about some early warning signs that, your kid's got some problems. And it turns out he's literally the Antichrist. Okay. He's the son of Satan. And, there's some really, really cool elements there. Some spectacularly staged death sequences that are almost like Final Destination, well before Final Destination. And then and there were sequels that never quite, but it ended on this really chilling note because, again, it's 1976. Sorry if people haven't seen it, but yeah, you're going, oh my God, this kid might be in the White House before things are done, which actually ended up happening. But we're not going to get political. I didn't say which president, so don't get on me, fans. All right, but yeah, The Omen, 1976. Now, has anybody seen it in our group? Roeper. Have you guys seen this? Jack
Oh,
has
yeah.
seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I have not.
The
Check it out.
scene
Not-
with the
not-
priest getting impaled always stuck with me for a long time. No pun intended. But like that scene always did.
Yeah,
It kept me
right.
for a while. And I think I agree with you 100%. Kids, when they're done scary, like they're the scariest things in existence. Kids are so scary. And it
I
freaked me
feel
out.
like the kid, the actor, probably got anything he wanted for a couple of years just because he was Damien from The Omen. Like,
Yep.
who was going to say no to him just in case it wasn't acting?
Which, by the way, Damien, it was the perfect name for like a scary child.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
son of the devil. Like that was such a perfect.
That
perfect
became
name.
kind of, I'm a lot older than you guys, but that became kind of a thing too, where people would say, like, your son's like Damien. You know, I mean, you're all, okay, Damien, settle down. You know, you'd be saying this to kids who are acting up.
Yeah.
Does it hold up, Richard? Would you recommend this?
Yeah,
still?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And again, to Carl's point, it has that kind of, I don't know, you know, I hadn't thought about it, but again, movies from the 70s and the 80s, they just somehow feel more real. Like this stuff really could have happened, you know, because they have that look to them. They're not necessarily shot in a horror style a lot of times. I mean, The Shining was, but I mean, like a film like this, it's just it's like, oh, this is a story about a family, and then it's like, oh, this is a story about a family that adopted the devil's son.
Is this the one they tried to remake on like 666?
Liev Schreiber made
Yeah.
a new one, if I remember right. And was, again, it's hard to hold up to an original like that.
Yeah.
All right, The Omen, the originals off the board.
Yeah.
Carl, you were up.
All right. I kind of screwed up because I had made I alluded to this movie earlier, but I'm taking Saw 2004. I don't care. I know that it's become kind of like a joke with how many sequels have come out and they just kept pumping them out.
Buddy,
Mm.
let me tell you something about the movies you've picked so far. There are about 1 trillion sequels between all of them. You're talking like
Yeah.
Halloween, like
Okay.
even the
Yeah,
Omen,
I
all these
just-
things, they have 1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, but the original experience was so intense and gruesome and visceral that you left
Yeah.
and you called your buddy and you were like, "You haven't seen it? Come on, I'm picking you up. We're going to see it." And that was the thing. It was an amazing experience. It came out right before Halloween. The marketing for it was flawless. It was like a must see thing to do.
Mhm.
One of the very few like movies I can remember where all the hype going into it was like completely blown away. When we got out, we're like, holy fuck, could you believe that? It was also, what's very scary about it is the element of just like random confinement and this like surveillance aspect and morality and stuff where you're walking around and you're just like, I'm not really a good person. Like, who's watching me and stuff like that. Cause it seemed, and then the choice, the guy having to cut his, like, sorry, spoilers, Robbie, if you haven't seen this one, but like, I just remember walking around for like a week after being like, would I have cut my foot off, or how long would it take for me? That was just something that stuck with me. So now I'm curious from an expert's opinion, like, was that a good movie at the time, or how was that received, or what do you think about it?
I actually agree. You know, it became, again, another phrase that got overused, but, you know, the Saw movies just became torture porn at some point where it was all about the grisly stuff. But that first one, it was original. The writing is really strong there. The acting, I think, is Danny Glover in the original Saw movie? You know, you go back and you're like, okay. And even though it was made in 2004, I think it was kind of made in the style of these films from the 70s and the 80s we're talking about. You know, not to get too deep into the weeds, but like, you know, one of the things about great horror films is the production design, you know, the sets, you know, the houses, the interiors, and how much they become a part of something where you get, you know, Sixth Sense again, you know, where you get a glimpse of a door or something through a window and then it comes back, you know, there's callbacks to it. And Saw, you know, just the way it was designed, I mean, I guarantee you the storyboards for that are, you know, were really carefully thought out, all of it. So I think it's a great pick, Carl, actually. Because I think because the Saw movies have become, you know, such just exercises and exploitation that people don't give the original one enough credit sometimes.
That last one was rough.
Oh, it was so bad. It was
Jeez, yeah.
unbelievably bad. But
Okay.
the original is one of my favorites. The original is like what got me into horror, because this
Oh,
was
wow.
my sister's the same age as Carl, and this was for her like, oh, you want to watch some horror movies? Like, I want to watch you watch this one. So
Yeah.
she put it on, and it's that low budget. I think they legit don't have any exterior shots because they didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
And everything is just like, it feels tense, it feels claustrophobic, and that twist
Exactly.
at the end is all time.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is.
And
When
I
he
even
gets up,
feel
it's
like
like
the
one of the
next
great
couple,
moments.
you were like, all right, yeah, let's do.
Saw 2 was okay. Like,
Yeah.
they trail off quickly, but yeah,
Yeah.
once they get into more of the torture, that's when that was with the Spiral, the Chris Rock one. It was just scene after scene of gore, and you're like,
It was horrible. It was
Yeah.
it was dreadful. Yeah.
yeah.
I will say my last closing point with Saw, it was so good that I did go see the sequel in theater. So that was like, man, we got to go see the second one. So
Which was the last one you're referring to? Was that Jigsaw?
It was Spiral. Jigsaw
Spiral was
was
the last
not
one.
great, but it was better than Spiral.
Okay, I didn't see. I saw Jigsaw.
That movie fundamentally misunderstood what Saw was. Spiral.
What'd you say,
Made no
KenJac?
sense.
Sorry, you're a little low. What'd you?
Oh, so can you hear me?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're better now.
Okay, yeah. No, that movie just misunderstood what Saw was.
Mhm.
Spiral. Like it just turned into a totally different thing. That was bad. Not well acted either, for whatever that's worth. Or miscast.
Saw. Second rounder. Saw. Carl.
Yeah, you probably didn't see little early, but
Little early,
You know
I
what? I'm passionate about how scary that movie is. I know personally it's a scary movie. There's a couple other great ones we're going to talk about. And I did now I'm already regretting I should have taken Scream because I wanted to talk about. I did get a chance, so that's why I let everybody go. And then at the end of Scream, I stole 2 minutes. So, but yeah, Saw. Saw's a fine pick. It's fine, but I like it. It was very scary.
Going with kind of a high ceiling for Saw there, Carl.
Yeah.
It's just
Whatever.
like the thing is, it's like, do you want the Saw fans on your side? Like, do you want?
Are there Saw fans, dude? What
Oh,
am I getting
definitely.
myself
Yep.
into?
Yeah.
Oh,
That'd be a
fuck.
convention, a Saw con. That'd be an interesting group.
Super chalk, super personal. Okay, maybe I just did a
Yeah.
bit. Maybe I'm going to Rob, you want to come with me to Sawfest?
I'll be there. Yeah. I got my
Like
tickets
if-
already.
Like, if the exit was still open, Carl, like that's where your fans are hanging out.
Oh God. All right. No, hey, let's stay in here. Let's stay in this.
Wherever, you know.
Stay in the
let's,
fight.
Yeah. All right. All right,
Saw.
Rob, you're up.
I can't believe that this movie has made it back to me, but I'm thrilled that it has. I believe it's one of only, I want to say 3 movies to win Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Actor, and Best Actress. It's The Silence of the Lambs. This is a movie with not 1, but 2 all-time horror villains, horror characters to me, in Buffalo Bill and Hannibal Lecter. And it's one of those movies where Anthony Hopkins barely has any screen time, maybe 12 minutes or something like that.
Yep.
And it's all he needs. And it's one of the greatest performances of all time, one of the most misquoted movies of all time, right? With the "Hello, Clarice," kind of like the Luke, I am your father line. But the twists in this movie are so good. When I saw it for the first time, he's wearing that guy's face, and then they do the house switcheroo where you think they're at the house and then they're at the wrong house. Oh my God. Every time I watch this movie, I notice another thing I love about it. So I'm going Silence of the Lambs.
It's a great pick, Robbie. And you're right. I think it's about 18 minutes. Anthony Hopkins. When it came out, I remember saying to people, well, I know who's going to win Best Supporting Actor for sure this year. It's Anthony Hopkins. And then he got put in the Best Actor category in one because he dominates the film, even though he's not in it. And Scott Glenn kind of gets lost sometimes because he has to play the more, straight type of role, but he's great because he's there for Clarice. And Jodie Foster, who's, an amazing actress, but you could say maybe her best performance because, she's just, everything's on her. And there's amazing scenes where, remember the one where she's going to do kind of an examination and all these male state troopers are looking at her like, what's this little girl doing here? But she kind of takes control of the room. There's just brilliant filmmaking. So and that's one, people could argue, well, is it a horror
thriller? I know it's on the line. Yeah, but
It's scary.
It is for me because Buffalo Bill is so scary when he does the tuck. Come on, that's fucking straight.
If that ain't a horror villain, who is, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, to me, it's almost like too good and too well respected of a movie where I was like, is it scary? Yeah, I understand. Yes, but there are some, and for lack of professional language, like it's more fucked up to me. It's just like a really dark. Scary wise, there's the scene, right? Someone gets abducted in the van.
And then she's kept in a well,
and then she gets put, and then she goes to the well. That's terrifying. All that stuff's terrifying. That's
You want to talk about guys that just have never really lost their fastball. Anthony Hopkins, like you can go back then and look at that, and then Richard, I'm sure you've seen the Father, right? Unbelievable how much this guy can do. And like
I just saw him literally hours ago in a film called Armageddon Time, where he's playing his grandfather in 1980s New York, and you believe him. And again, talk about obviously he's Sir Anthony Hopkins, but you believe him as a Jewish American grandfather in 1980 New York. He's great. He's a great actor.
That's James Gray, right?
Yeah.
How'd
Kind
you
of
feel
based on his life.
I'm an Ad Astra supporter. A lot of people didn't like Ad Astra. I really liked it. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, he's a brilliant filmmaker.
Yeah.
And this is a very personal story, I think, based a little bit on his own growing up in his own childhood. So, it's, and Hathaway's in it. It's a great cast. Jeremy Strong, who people know from Succession, who playing a completely different character. Again, reminding us how great these actors are,
One of the greatest final lines a movie could ever have, too, when he's like meeting a friend for dinner.
Yes, perfect ending. I mean, some of the sequels and prequels are pretty well done, but you're right. That was just Anthony Heald is the actor who plays the guy, and it's just like he should have gotten eaten. He was the worst.
Yep.
Remember there's so many, again, like, I don't want to say feminism, but really there is, because you remember when he first brings Clarice down to see Dr. Lecter and he's hitting on her. This guy's hitting on her, saying like, there's a lot of great things to do in town. And then he's mad that he walked her all the way there because she's not interested. I'm like, you're the worst, dude.
Yep. I think it was in the second one where he has her to dinner and he's like, the guy's brain is open and he's like picking pieces off and cooking it. Like that scene freaked me out. I think that's
the one. That's Ray Liotta. Actually, was that character? Yeah.
Yep.
Good pick.
Silence of the Lambs off the board. KenJac, you're up.
I'm surprised. I got two of the ones where I was positive I wouldn't get him back on the turn. I get to get him back. I'll start with what I think is a revolutionary movie that has a sequel that went in a totally different direction, which is also incredible in Aliens. The first Aliens movie, I think, is an incredible horror movie. That was obviously like revolutionary because like sci-fi horror wasn't like in that realm, like I think it's like space sci-fi, wasn't like totally prevalent or anything like that at that point. And I think Aliens, what Ridley Scott was able to do with that movie is insane. The xenomorph as one of the most iconic creatures ever to be made on a movie set, in my opinion. Super scary. The mouth coming out, second mouth, still scares me to death. Unfortunately, bastardized with other movies like Alien vs. Predator and all that. Alien and the Predator, both of them incredible creatures. And I've always been scared of that. And I think you were just mentioning like good female characters. I mean, Ripley is like the greatest, one of the greatest female action heroes ever. And I think her struggle through that first movie is insane. And what James Cameron did with the second one, turning it into like an action sci-fi instead, and still being incredible was awesome as well. But Aliens, I think, is an easy pick for me.
Alien, right?
Yeah, sorry. Alien, not Aliens.
Whoa. Yeah, which one?
Aliens is not a horror movie.
And I do love the
Aliens is the
classic
sequel.
story.
Alien is the original.
Yes.
And I'm asking because I know Ed wants to know as well. Right, Ed?
Yes.
Alien.
I
love the classic story of James Cameron giving them the script for the second one, and the S in Aliens was a $.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I'm so curious. Have you guys seen Alien? Well, obviously, Richard. I know.
I've not.
This is one of the ones you haven't seen. Oh, okay.
I saw it when I'm young, early, cousin's basement type stuff. Vivid or not vivid, vague memories.
Yeah. The chest buster.
She gets
time.
okay. So now that it's out here, did she get what happened? She gets knocked up by it. She's she's pregnant with an alien, right?
The creatures impregnate people. That's like what they do with the face huggers, and which is also another one of the scariest creatures, at least.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
And the eggs and that disgusting like saliva stuff like dripping off them. Oh, it's a very damp movies.
It is it's moist.
One of the early
someone had to say it. Someone had to say the word, Richard.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
gotta go with
KenJac,
that.
you're up again.
I'll go with another one, all-time classic, and this is a movie that I grew up on a town on the water in the Atlantic. It frightened me off of the beach for years upon years. Jaws is another one where I think that if you're just talking about pure visceral fear, Jaws does that about as good as anything. And I think the creature design, I know they had that big motorized shark they had to drag through the water that George Lucas broke by messing around with it while he was visiting Spielberg on set. But one of the three of the best actors, I think, assembled, three best casted actors too. Incredible roles by all of them. Like when you hear like the behind the scenes stories of all their like journeys while making it, them being like drunk while filming the whole USS Indianapolis monologue, which is amazing, one of my favorites ever.
Yeah.
Incredible. And the fear of that shark again drove me from the beach for a long time as a kid. And my dad was like, I had a feeling it would happen, but it happened to me too when I watched it when I was younger. So I had to let it happen to you as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a great film, and Spielberg was 26, 27 when he made it. Think about that. And it's really it's scariest until we see the shark, because it was a mechanical shark, and it's all about, the fear of what's in the water. And again, we talk about the production elements. It won the Academy Award for Best Sound. I think it called Best Sound Design at the time, because of the use of, and we're not talking about the score, which is amazing too, the famous theme, but just the use of sound, just the little things you'd hear or thought you didn't hear. And it's got some great moments of comedic relief. And yeah, Roy Scheider's great. Everybody's so good in this.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this on the long take recently, but I know they do on the water screenings of Jaws where they'll set up a floating projection screen and you're in a tube at night in the ocean watching this movie. That is insane. You have to have the largest balls on the entire planet to agree to go to that screening.
Fuck that. Because I don't really think of it as a horror movie. Do you?
I don't. I think it's scary. I think this is one of these things. It's scary. We're doing this draft because it's Halloween. That's definitely a scary movie, but there are other movies that involve natural predators as such that I wouldn't deem, but there's something about Jaws, maybe because of the theme, maybe because it's iconic and classic, like it can cross over into this threshold.
It scared my older brother from going in our above ground pool. So
I think Eddie and I might be, Eddie and I might be different. As Midwesterners, I remember being a kid and being like, that's really scary. And my dad being like, hey, don't worry, that's on the other side. That would never happen.
Is this the same dad that reminds you of The Shining? I mean, geez,
just from
all kinds of references here.
Hey, and not to discredit my father too much here. I'm not saying he reminded me of The Shining, but seeing that movie was like, I don't want to make dad snap. Like same thing when I saw Falling Down for the first time. Hopefully nobody drafts that. But Michael Douglas just blowing it in traffic. I was like, you know what? I will put my laundry away.
This for the record, Carl, just say that It's a Wonderful Life reminds you of your dad as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is Mark's favorite movie. You bring it up. It's a classic, although kind of dark too. That one's kind of dark.
That one gets dark. Yeah.
How about one that just fucking breaks start to finish here? How about Miracle on 34th Street? Pop, can't wait to watch it with you this Christmas.
That's the best. Another Jaws is great. Alex Kittner is the kid that gets killed in there, and the guy's name that played him is Jonathan Searle. And I don't know if he still has it, but he opened like a Jaws themed restaurant.
Really?
Martha's Vineyard. I don't think he did a lot of acting after that. So he was like, he's in the movie for 4 seconds. It's like, and also people forget it's like the saddest thing is the dog. Remember the guy's looking for his dog, and all we see is the stick. And I'm like, nobody ever so worried about Alex Kittner. What about that poor dog, man?
Yeah.
Saddest moment of the movie.
Right?
Yep. Tragic. Really
tragic. Ed, did you I'm obligated. I'm the only one here, dude. I'm sorry I gotta do this. Everybody's waiting for it. I gotta ask. Did you hate it, Ed? Did you hate it when the dog got killed?
Yeah, I didn't like seeing the stick only remaining,
Eddie's not a dog guy, by the way.
I am. Why would I want
a dog guy?
You think I'm shark over dog?
Wouldn't surprise me.
No.
I'm dog over shark. What do you mean?
Okay.
I wouldn't would a shark help me or a dog? A dog would help me before a shark, so I'm a dog.
All right.
A fact.
It's all about who else.
Jaws. Robbie, you're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with another iconic one. This is one that I saw as a kid and then came back around to this year, watched it, and was kind of blown away by the practical effects, how funny it was, how much it moved. It was great pacing. Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm gonna go with the original. Wes Craven, great practical effects, hysterical scenes, and great combination of both. There's the one scene where the girl picks up the phone and she hears Freddy Krueger go, "I'm your boyfriend now," and then he licks her mouth through the phone. Stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, this is so disgusting. Like, who thought of this? His entire outfit is iconic. We mentioned Scream before. Wes Craven has such a great cameo in that movie where he's the high school janitor Fred, just dressed as Freddy Krueger the entire time. Another one of those where it's like one of the faces of Halloween. You see someone walking around in a Freddy Krueger mask, the claws, the hat. It's scary, like the scabby skin and everything. One that still gives me the heebie-jeebies to this day. One that produced some decent sequels as well. There are some good Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, and I think the film debut of Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Robbie, this is a great pick, and it's interesting because we talk about, and we've mentioned some of these, so we can now, but there's a lot of these iconic killers like Ghostface or Michael Myers. a stuntman can play those characters. They don't speak, or in the case of Scream, there's a kind of a voice, changing thing. Robert Englund is a great actor, and that movie really depends on that lead performance, that combination of being terrifying but also funny as hell, as you mentioned. So, listen, you can go to conventions and there's 9 guys that play Jason, in various Friday. Kane Hodder, I think, probably is the most famous one, and there's acting involved in that. But in this case, that's a real person. You can't not have Freddie Englund, or Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. So that, I think, makes it more memorable. And just the whole concept of getting into someone's dreams is it's like with the water in Jaws or anything like that. It's terrifying.
And like never knowing if when you wake up, you're not just in another layer of a dream or something like that.
Because we've all been there where you wake up and you kind of go back to your dreams waiting for you. And you're like, how was this dream waiting for me? I got up, I peed, I got a glass of water, and it's still there waiting for me.
Yep.
Just like Freddy.
Yeah. So the follow-ups from some of these like horror movies, when you get to watch them, it's like, okay, check under the bed, or what, like this one's like, don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. So that was as a child watching this one for the first time was definitely a very traumatic, like overly traumatic, I would say. It was very traumatic. So.
Yeah, Freddy's just a real deal.
An innovator as well. Look at the whole last season of Stranger Things was like very Nightmare on Elm Street based.
Yeah. He just has everything. He's got the boiler room. He's got the claws. He's got the ripped up face. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for. He's got so much going for him. The dream sequence. I think like he's like a child predator. He's a creep. Obviously, he's fucked up. He's got the long arms too, right? Doesn't he have that?
He can do a bunch of weird, messed up stuff when he's in the dreams.
Yeah.
Freddy's fucked, man.
Freddy's fucked.
Yeah.
I gotta realize Freddy got fingered in that alliteration.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Johnny Depp, right?
Yeah.
Carl, you're up.
So now we're opening up a little bit more. We're like scary movies, great movies. There's some like great, I guess, more like iconic movies here that are kind of coming up here. So I'm going to be compelled. I got to put like an iconic slasher movie on my list. This was a really cool one to see when I was like a teenager getting into college. It was like, oh, have you seen American Psycho? You haven't? I have the full cut on DVD. You can come over to my dorm room and watch it. And it was like and almost so like a cultural effect of that was the first one we were like digging for answers. Like, wait, what did that mean? Like, is this real? You had to go back and like watch it a couple times to get it. Very, very, and this kind of where I was saying, like, to me, Silence of the Lambs wasn't as like scary. So I don't know if American Psycho is as scary as much as it's just generally fucked up. It is just such a fucked up movie, start to finish. And he's a complete lunatic psychopath. And I know there's like a bigger cultural play here, and the novel behind it is supposed to be more about like the timing in the 80s and just like nobody gave a shit about anything other than making money. But that movie in and of itself, just like what is a very, very, again, I'll say it is just such a fucked up movie.
It is. I would count that. I would definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christian Bale. I mean, again, we're talking about a great actor, early in his career. And to your point, the Bret Easton Ellis novel is really bizarre because the character, I think it was, again, there's all this commentary. So he's into very kind of mainstream pop music, right? But in the novel, he'll spend 6 pages talking about Genesis, the band. And you're just going like, what is going? And you're thinking, this guy is a lunatic. Why am I reading page? In the middle of killing people, he'll just be like, And then Phil Collins joined the band, and they went in a different direction with Invisible Touch. And I'm like, what is going on here? Kind of
that scene when he puts on Phil Collins though, and he starts telling the girls about like Phil Collins, and then it's like, are you gonna stare at it or eat it or something? It was something weird about like where he was going in and out of like talking dirty to the girls about having sex, but explaining Phil Collins in the background. So now you're telling me there's like a 6-page. What a great representation of how fucked up and much this guy loved Phil Collins. Or
poor Phil Collins. What did he do?
Genesis got dragged into that a little bit, right?
Yeah. I'll give you guys a quick Phil Collins story. That's not because this is not a horror movie, but I talked to him a million years ago. I interviewed Phil Collins about the Take Me Home, the famous song, I don't remember, take me home. And everybody loved it. It was used in a Miami Vice episode and it was considered iconic and all. And he told me that he actually was inspired to write it by One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's about a crazy person trying to escape a mental institution.
Wow.
So the next time you listen to that, there's my Phil Collins story for you. And I interviewed him so long ago that he was celebrating that his wife had just given birth to their daughter, Lily. Yeah. He goes, I interviewed him in New York and the baby was in the next room. Now she's in Paris. Now she's in Paris. Emily.
Yep, she sure is. I still don't get the award love behind every time I see it. I got it for 50 million Emmys. The American Psycho, I think, is one of the all-time misunderstood movies where it's become the character of I almost said Jason Bateman. Patrick Bateman is become the icon of alpha males and all this shit. This is a movie.
You're missing the point, guys. Yeah.
Novels by a gay guy, directed by a woman. It's pretty much as out loud against this behavior as you could possibly be. And there it's oh, this dude's so cool. Look at him working out. He's doing his skincare routine. It's you don't get it. Same thing with my other example for that is always American Sniper, where people use that as a rah-rah USA movie. It's you don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah. Well, it's, we're seeing that right now, or we've just seen it, where a lot of people are going to be Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween. And I'm I don't think you're getting this, guys. That ain't Ghostface. That's a real guy that did some unbelievably horrific thing. And don't be Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need just to reiterate, Bale, just unbelievable.
Oh, the scene of him doing the ab crunches, talking about his fitness routine, just how particular he is. KenJac, great points too, because at its core, it's not really a slasher. It's more of a dark comedy or a dark.
It's a social satire about materialistic and all this stuff. Getting into these restaurants and oh no, now it's not cool. And Reese Witherspoon's in there. It's a great cast.
Reese Witherspoon, Justin Theroux, obviously Justin Jared Leto. Chloe Sevigny, right? Sevigny?
Yeah.
I was pronouncing her name wrong.
Yeah. So the killing and the slashing is it's kind of secondary to the bigger, broader point, but it is still a very messed up movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I missed Willem Dafoe somehow off that cast list. I was the one person I forget is brilliant Willem Dafoe.
Still don't know what happened in it either, but whatever. Richard, you're up.
I'm going to go with Candyman, guys, the original from 1992. And for folks who are listening, for you guys, it's such a Chicago horror movie, but also this universal thing. And it was when it came out in 1992, in the early 1990s, unfortunately it was a really rough time for Chicago, and there was a lot of racial strife. There was even more violence than we have today. And it was set in Cabrini Green, this infamous housing project, which was turned out to be a complete disaster for a bunch of reasons, and it's gone now. They finally tore it down, but so it kind of played on those fears, on social differences. So you had Virginia Madsen, and she's the who's a Chicagoan, by the way, and her brother Michael Madsen, the great Michael Madsen. I think he was Mr. Brown, as we recall from Reservoir Dogs, right? But she's playing this student who's kind of studying all of this urban folklore thing from the white privileged perspective. But then when she gets into the actual place in Cabrini Green, and again, you want to talk about that iconic thing, the idea that you could look in the mirror, and if you say Candyman, I don't know if it was 3 times, or that he'll come out. People were afraid to actually say that in the mirror for a while in the early 90s, just in case. So again, low budget. Not a lot of special effects, but that character of Candyman, man, that really was some really good, scary stuff. And they revisited it, and I actually thought they did a pretty good job. But the 1992 original is the one to go with, guys.
What was the deal that Tony Todd made with Candyman with the bees, where he's oh, you can do the live bees for the scene, but you pay me.
I think it was $1,000 a sting.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
And I think he got stung. I believe the number's 23 times.
Yeah. Jesus. I remember the only other piece of trivia I know about Candyman is that I think they wanted Eddie Murphy to be the lead actor, but they couldn't afford him. I can't imagine Eddie Murphy as Candyman. Only Tony Todd.
Yeah.
So all the scary movies, I had that honorable mention. I wasn't going to draft it because I can't talk about it like you just did, but I just, at doing the research, made a note to make sure that Candyman gets talked about, because that of all of these was the one when you were a little kid, you're you don't do that, do not do that. Yeah. And it would be family parties where the cousins would get together and be is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? He's doing it. And oh my God, he's closing bed. So that whole concept, I think now that I'm older and we talk about like the marketing and at the timing of stuff, I don't know if they reverse engineered that, or, you know, if someone did, that's a brilliant idea, or like how to insert these type of horror tactics that people can like take away into their everyday lives. Like, of course,
Bloody
a
Mary
slasher
stuff,
or
yeah.
whatever, like a dead guy coming back. We haven't talked about it yet, but like a guy coming from the lake 30 years later, sure. But see, I don't know, something about relatability here.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, and the way it's shot is just amazing too. You know, even during the day, Chicago just looks so ominous and scary. There's some overhead shots that way before drone technology too. So you think about that, you know, how they had to do that on a limited budget. It's a really beautifully shot film.
the Cabrini was like, I mean, it's just like, just looking at it is, the setting is great. During the day, you said it perfectly. So, yeah, Candyman. Did you like the new one?
I did.
Yeah.
I think because I think it really, you know, was respectful to the original, but then kind of had some new, you know, twists on it as well. So I thought they did a really nice job with that.
Okay.
And I think the audience will recognize the neighborhood we're talking about too. From it was featured in Hardball, right?
Yes. Which is a classic example of a really, really good book, nonfiction book about a real guy who became this coach for these inner city kids. That was not a great movie. I love Keanu, but that, you know, he's the speech he gives to the kids, he goes like, part of life is just showing up, and you guys are great at showing up. Well, that's not exactly a Rocky-esque moment, you know. But yeah, that's exactly the setting. Is same place, Cabrini Green for Hardball.
I love that movie. All right, it's to me. Before I make this pick, I do want to talk about our friends at ChevyDriveChicago.com. That's right, ChevyDriveChicago.com, because now is the perfect time to make sure your ride is running right. What does that mean, Carl, to make sure your ride is running right?
I mean, guys, we know what's coming up with the weather. You can feel it, that little fall crisp in the air. Just step outside. You know it's coming. The Almanac says a bad winter, and I don't like that. I was reading the Almanac. They said bad winter's coming. You got to get the service taken care of. Take it to a local Chevy. Go to ChevyDriveChicago.com. Find a local dealer near you. Take care of service. Now's the time to do it. You don't want to be doing it around the holidays, and by then it's way too late, Ed.
Yeah, it's a reliable servicer, so make sure you're getting all your service needs done at a Chevy dealer. It's also time to hit up your local Chevy dealer if you need to customize a brand new ride. That's right. Just go to ChevyDriveChicago.com to find your local dealer and place an order for your brand new custom ride to get your new Chevy today. One more time, ChevyDriveChicago.com to find your local dealer and place an order for your brand new custom Chevy today. ChevyDriveChicago.com is the place you need to go to get yourself in that brand new Chevy. All right. Thank you to Chevy. All right. My third round pick. I'm going to go with The Ring. This
Good
was
one.
Nice. Very good.
this was my sweet spot for me growing up. I was in grammar school, and you know, I just have vivid memories. You know, this is the one where I went to with, you know, group of my guy friends, group of the girls, and everyone was scared as shit. Great theater movie. So 7 days. The Ring was awesome.
Another great one that'll make you afraid of your phone ringing.
Yeah.
After you see that movie, like what a thing to say. I've never seen the full The Ring. I've seen bits and pieces on television, but when I was little, it just scared me so much that I was like, I'm going to stay away from that for the rest of my life.
Not gonna risk it. I love that.
Yeah, and just the way, like, with her hair in front of her face
Samara.
and crawling it out was just,
That's like an iconic picture, you know, figure in horror movies for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
oh yeah. I don't know what is I don't know. I mean, I guess you could take the original, so I won't bring it up, but because it's a remake technically from a foreign
It
film.
is. Yeah.
Japanese film. Yeah.
Japanese film. So so I don't know the comparisons, but
It was a
Ring's
very
great.
faithful remake, actually. It's
Is
a very
it?
faithful remake of the original work.
Oh,
you
okay.
know?
All right.
Yeah.
So then,
What was
Yeah,
that John
so
Cho movie they made recently? Was it a Grudge sequel or remake, or was it a Ring? I forget.
Oh,
but it was
hey,
bad.
don't be throwing that around. But when you do say Ring, you do think of that other movie. Like you just brought it
Yeah.
up, but like as soon as you say Ring, there's another movie. You're like, nope, not that movie. He's talking about Ring.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
I actually-
Clarify, Ed. Great. That was a great. Sorry, that was a great movie for young, early age, like when you're hanging out with girls and stuff like that, you would go to the
Yes.
theater together, like get a couple of the
Yes.
gues, we'll get a couple of the girls together. We're all going to sit in the same row together. That was a culturally significant movie. Very, very messed up.
Well,
Yes.
and the reason like a lot of young guys like to do that to this day with young girls is they believe there might be some comfort factor that will come later on. Like
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay. And in most cases, the guys end up being more scared than the girls, but that's another story.
Yeah,
I actually
exactly.
just read yesterday that the cursed video from this movie is like a bonus feature on the DVD. And if you play it on the bonus features, it will disable your remote control until after the video is over. Like literally the only way to stop the video is turning your TV or DVD player off. Disables the control. I don't know how that works. And then it brings you back to the main menu and you hear a phone ring twice and then you get control of the remote again.
Love that.
Wow, that's great.
Shout out to DVD special features. That's something
Those
that's
were the
missing from
days.
streaming.
For real.
Right. Those days where you would say main menu and you get maybe two language choices and then deleted scenes. Ooh,
Just that.
fancy.
All right. Next one. I'm just gonna take my favorite one of all time, just for the sake. I want to make sure it doesn't get taken, even though I'm pretty sure it won't. So I'm gonna take The Strangers.
Yeah. Great
Oh
pick.
wow,
Yeah.
that's your favorite all time. I didn't know that about you.
Great.
Yeah.
Are you
pick.
favorite
kidding
all
me,
time.
Ed?
Yeah.
Right from the hands. Liv Tyler, unbelievable in this movie. So
Yeah.
messed up.
Favorite all time, for the simple fact that it's so possible.
It can
And
happen
it's
to
so
you.
subtle, and it's just silent terror, like the one I forget the name of the character who comes up behind him, but it's just terrifying, and it creeps up so quietly, and it just happens so slowly. It's great. It's great.
Good
It's an
pick.
awesome pick.
Yeah, and I hated the remake. I hated the sequel. Excuse me. I
Yeah.
thought it was horrible. It actually got decent reviews, and I saw that they're making a reboot, or they're doing like a new series on it. Did you see that, KenJac or Richard? I don't know.
I didn't know that. But
Yeah.
I
I
thought
wouldn't
it
be
was supposed to
surprised.
be 3 movies, and there was a movie that came out in 2018.
Yeah, there's a new one. There's something they're rebooting it. They're doing something new with it, which is I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I love the Strangers.
Wouldn't have
Yeah.
expected it on here. I don't know why. I just didn't put it in the main consideration. I wish I had it in my pool. It's a great.
What'd you
movie.
say,
Yeah,
sir?
I just didn't have it in my pool. Like when I was thinking about horror movies, but man, like that's one, like you were saying, the whole element of it can happen to you like very easily, especially like this movie came out when I was a freshman in high school. And like, I was just like horrified of being home alone. And I was just like, it did a very heavy, that visceral effect that we keep talking about on me.
Yeah, it's like someone who likes to spend time in Wisconsin, and it's like it looks like the setting is like a nice like little like Geneva
lakefront
house, and
house,
someone
yeah.
just knocks on it. It's like, hey, why'd you do this? It's like because you were home. That's just terrifying. So
Yeah.
The Strangers is my pick. All right, Richard, we're back to you.
And I don't want to give the titles away, but I'm debating between one from very recent times and then going way back. And I think I'm going to go way back, guys. And I'm going to go at Night of the Living Dead, 1968, the original George Romero, made for like $1.50. And first of all, it's still terrifying, but it also, it needs to be honored even more, I think, for basically inventing the zombie movie. There had been zombie movies and B movies and drive-in movies and stuff, but every zombie movie, every series that's come since then, whether it's The Walking Dead or 28, sorry, I won't say
Close. That's a close one. That's a close.
but
I already fucked
whatever.
this
I
up.
don't know. I could have said anything there. But springs from that. That kind of relentless killing and really gross stuff as well. But when you go back and look at it, it's still really terrifying. So I'm going to go with the original Night of the Living Dead.
I love that. Very much a great tribute to a classic all-time movie.
Not
I
seen
must
this
admit
one.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I know. It's bad.
it's on,
it's such a classic.
I think it's on HBO Max. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, it's out there.
Definitely worth a watch.
Carl, you seen this one?
No, have not.
Yeah, it sounds like an easy watch too. Nice.
Something about black and white too. I don't know what
Yeah,
it
and
is.
it's pretty short. I don't know the exact running time, but I can't believe it's more than an hour and a half tops.
Yeah.
They ran out of money. Probably. That's it. That's a wrap.
Night of the Living Dead.
And yeah.
All right, Carl, we are back to you.
I'll go recent. I'll take Hereditary.
Mm.
That is a movie. So I get kind of like sucked into these situations for Mrs. Carl time because she loves horror movies and scary movies. Anytime it's like, what do you want to watch? Is just the instant I know I have to like the initial thing will be like, oh, what about have you seen this or heard of this? And it's usually something like very messed up. And then Hereditary, of all of these ones though, this one stands out because most recently though, it's just really like I don't like the end of these one. Like the one of these, it's like really terrifying. Where at the end, it like seems like it's getting worse. And there's a couple of these recently that I have some like recent ones where like, oh, it's only getting more fucked up. And this is definitely one of those movies.
Great movie and great performances the whole time. Yeah, the scene. I think it's fair saying where the telephone pole, all that. One of the most shocking, scary things. And then when you get the shot of like the revisited area the next morning and there's bugs crawling every. Oh my God, terrifying. I made my former roommate Trent watch this with me by telling him it was a thriller that wasn't that scary. I said, it's not that scary. Watch it with me. He doesn't like horror movies and he still to this day holds a grudge over that.
Tony, we were just talking about Toni Collette earlier. She has an incredible, like Oscar-worthy performance in this movie, in my opinion. And on top of that, like Ari Aster, some of the shots he managed to put together with this, which I forget his cinematographer's name, but like the bisected like dollhouse view of like their entire house, insanely good. And a lot of like effects, like we keep talking about like how the practical looks so much better. Like the simple thing actually on fire right in front of you. The like you can tell it's on wires, like the headless body like flowing into the treehouse. Stuff like that, so simple, but so much scarier than anything you can make in a
Absolutely.
Your eye just can catch like that gloss that CGI has. I feel like you could just tell.
Absolutely. And this is one of those movies where you really wonder like about the filmmaker's mindset. I mean, how do you even come up with this? I mean, it's so twisted and brilliant. But exactly. It's like what? You know, what? You were just at a cafe one day, at the laptop, and this came to you, or what? What happened to you? What happened to you?
Yeah,
but that's a great choice. One of the best, if we're talking about 21st century horror films, top 5 for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so good. Is Toni Collette won an Oscar?
I don't think so.
No.
Damn,
I was confused.
That's crazy.
Dormant as far as like Oscars go, and she's definitely they're doing different lanes, I think. But
she's incredible.
Yeah,
she's incredible. Great pick. Hereditary is awesome.
Thank you, man.
And it's like a hot pick. Like everyone likes Hereditary, so you'll get a lot of love for that one.
Yeah.
I got the Hereditary Saw fan bases ready to go to war for it.
There's a union.
Yeah.
There's a bar mitzvah theme.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it with the modern theme with my next pick. I picked 3 classics, and now I'm going to go with maybe a modern classic in Jordan Peele's Get Out. This was one of those movies that had that opening weekend like buzz. Like you have to see this movie opening weekend. It's so scary. Jordan Peele, who we all knew from Key and Peele, is making a horror movie now. What are we talking about? And I remember taking the whole fam and seeing this, like my sister, my mom, we went and saw this opening night. It was one of those movies where you show up, forgot to buy tickets in advance. So we're in the front of the entire theater and you don't even mind that you're breaking your neck trying to watch the movie the whole time, because this is another one like The Sixth Sense. That's almost more fun to watch again and again. Because you pick up the little things that he threw in there. The police officer, asking for ID and Allison Williams being like, don't give him your ID. And it's like, oh, she doesn't have his back there. She doesn't want him to be discovered and seen. And all of those elements I love. So out of the 3 horror movies Jordan Peele's made, this one's my favorite.
It's a great pick, Robbie. I feel like I should have traded up, damn it. Because that was definitely going to be my next one. And I agree, because again, it was such an original piece of work, and we didn't see it coming. And there wasn't and the cast now has become a lot more well known, but not some of the supporting players were more well known. Stephen Root's in there and people like that. But the build to it, and you're like, where is this going to go exactly? And then it keeps spiraling into something deeper and more complex. That's a great pick.
And it kept getting more interesting. I felt like horror movies constantly have the problem of like they go a twist too far, and you're like, all right, now I'm checked out, because they just want it. Never goes over that line for me. It keeps the cleverness and the actual like good filmmaking the entire time.
Yeah, that was one I agree with you. The whole hype going into it being like it's Jordan Peele, some guy that was in like an episode of Black Mirror, and the secretary from West Wing. Like, what are you doing here? And then like
Right.
you watch that
Yeah.
movie, and all these dudes are
Whoa.
so good. Like Lakeith
Yeah.
Stanfield goes on to be
Deputy Chief
amazing.
of Staff.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Deputy Chief of Staff. Daniel Kaluuya
Jeez.
goes on to win an Oscar. Like all these people were
Yeah.
so good in that, and it was like just on the perfect realm of feasibility and infeasibility for a movie.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I know this wouldn't work, but maybe this brain thing works. I don't know. And a lot of layers to it too. Just a brilliant movie.
Very funny comedy too. The sidekick that works at TSA or whatever.
Absolutely.
Brian
Yeah.
Tyree,
Fantastic.
right?
Yeah.
He's great. He's great. Great movie. KenJac.
I got my last two, right?
Yep.
Okay, I will start with a movie that I think it scared me more than any other movie. So in that sense, I guess it's kind of like a not guilty pleasure, but I know I'm being a little bit less objective on it. The Blair Witch Project. I think the Blair Witch Project is a brilliant movie done for, like, we were talking about movies that were made for $0. This is just literally like I think 10 grand or 50 grand or something like that. That movie basically made the sort of formula for found footage movies. And so many people have tried to replicate it. No one has done it as well as Blair Witch Project did. And it did a lot of what we were talking about with like Halloween and stuff, where it's a theater of the mind, because you don't see anything. You see nothing, but you are still horrified because of the way that they kind of shoot that movie with that, like that sound of a handheld camera can be so horrifying when you just hear it in the wood setting, the little like, I don't know what you call them, like talismans and stuff like that, like the thumbs getting cut off, like, or ear or whatever it was. And then that last shot where you just see the dude standing and staring at a corner, that should not be as horrifying as it is, but it leaves a huge lasting impression. And for me, like, I grew up with like a woods in my backyard. I did not go back out there at nighttime for like ever again, because that movie scared me so bad. And I think it really was like a genius movie that had amazing word of mouth and like really took it off.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, and spawned a million imitations. Everybody with the video camera doing their own little Blair Witch movie. But that, again, you know, when these films kind of transcend just cinema and become part of the popular culture and inspire the parodies and everything, that's a tribute to the original work. And you're absolutely right. When you look at it, you go, why is this so scary? But it was. And I remember seeing that at the screening, knowing almost nothing about it, and being, you know, walking out into the world going, you people don't even realize what's going on, man. You know, it's like you want to share it with everybody.
Oh, I love that. That's one where I wish I could have been like more cognizant around to watching. Like, I think it was what, 99, right? Yeah. I wish I would have been more cognizant when that came out, or like older, I guess, when it came out, to watch that in a theater, because I feel like the theater experience for that must have been absolutely incredible.
It's a truly terrifying movie.
Dude, that cherry on top at the end, you're right. Like that's what
sticks with you. That guy standing in the corner, like I could picture it in my eyes right now. I wish I couldn't. I wish I could get it out of there, but I can't.
Yeah,
This is horrifying.
crazy, dude. Crazy.
All right. I got my
Good
last
pick.
one.
You could kick off the fifth round too, KenJac.
Yeah, this is where it gets dicier, because there's a lot on here I really want, including some John Carpenter movies that I would also love to have on here. I think I'll go with one foreign movie just to round myself out a little bit. I'll do The Wailing. The Wailing, South Korean movie. Really, it's like a perfect blend of like slow burn with like very familiar, horrifying elements. They have like essentially like a demon in it, and that demon is one of the scariest creatures I've ever seen put to film. And I love that movie. I love the way it wraps up, and I love the way like it kind of, like we were saying, like, oh, maybe it could happen. You never know. Like that's one where I'm watching it, and the way that they present it makes me feel like what if this just started happening in my town? What if this just started happening where I am? Like, and I really think it's brilliantly made horror. South Korea actually has a lot of really good horror movies. There are just like 3 other ones I have on here that I would have put on, but I think The Wailing was the most scary.
And it's just from like 2016, right? I mean, that's a recent.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's a good pick. Yeah, that whole idea of something coming, you know, you're feeling safe in your town, and then you don't. You know, I mean, there's so many films, there's so many Twilight Zones and things like that kind of play off of that.
And just like the red eyes of that demon stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, good demon. Really good demon.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's the list.
Robbie, you are up.
So with my final pick, I'm gonna go with way more of like a personal one. I feel like a true like favorite, and it's Green Room, another fairly recent one. This feels like it was a horror movie that was like made for me. It was right up my alley. You take a punk rock band, They booked a show and they don't really know much about the venue or whatever. They show up and there's a bunch of neo-Nazis there. And they're like,
Patrick
this is
Stewart.
fucking this is fucking strange. You get Sir Patrick Stewart in a sinister role, like the head of the neo-Nazis. And it has gore, it has some practical stuff, it has a lot of just straight up tension when they're in the green room and they don't know what's going on, but the neo-Nazis haven't made it known to them yet that they're being kidnapped and they're being taken. This is definitely more of a personal pick. I think it's an A24 movie, but I love Green Room, and it's one that I've revisited a bunch.
That was one of Anton Yelkin's last movies, I think, right? If I remember correctly. It was him and Imogen Poots, I think. That was such a good movie. Incredible. And out of nowhere as well.
Original. Again, really, because so many of these stories have been told many times before, but to find a new way of telling it, which the screenplay for this is really strong.
Awesome movie.
You seen this one, Carl?
Yeah.
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 Have you seen it, Ed?
Terrifying.
His dad once painted a room green, so Carl's got a whole other story about this.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So this is a movie where it was like it's super fucked. To be honest with you, it's what I fell asleep like 30 minutes into it, but I rented it before. It's on my transaction history, so I'm familiar with the concept. And right as it got going, now, but isn't it like? I think. Hey.
My transaction.
You agree with it as a concept.
Yeah, like I can vouch for the fact that like if you went through like definitely rented that movie, and as somebody like living in the streaming era of like not refusing to pay for stuff, I do remember like going through a list and being like, oh, that's a must-see movie, willing to rent it. The reviews, I think the IMDb was high enough. I think it was over the personal threshold of 7.2, and be wrong. I mean, they're just telling you the process here, but no. Patrick Stewart though, great.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of Star Trek Next Generation as a kid with my dad.
One of those
there we
roles you
go,
don't
then.
expect to
There
see.
it is. Hey,
Yeah.
Brought it back home in a good way.
And Anton Yelkin was in
Little
Star Wars
ticker
too.
there. Nice.
And Anton Yelkin played Scotty, right? In the remake of Star Trek. So it all really does come full circle.
There you go. It all comes around.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Carl, you're up.
All right, so there's a really good movie that recently came out that I enjoyed watching. As long as I can talk about this other one later. All right, I'm gonna take a movie that I think deserves more credit, more spotlight. It's come out recently. I don't think it got any awards. It's called It Follows. It is
Great
a
movie.
crazy, terrifying premise. And it's basically like at any point in time, this monster demon that's like is just following you at all time at a slow pace. And like you can't get rid of it unless you fuck somebody. And it's like an STD, and you gotta like take this STD and you gotta go fuck somebody.
You're aware there is definitely like a big underground following for It Follows.
It's popular.
Yeah.
People love It Follows. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. I gotta. All right. Shout out Tommy Kelly for recommending that one to me back in our sales days. And okay, then I guess I don't need to act like people don't know about this movie. I thought because I got done watching, I was like, that was awesome. And then I don't think I got Mrs. Carl hated it. I believe I didn't see. Tell me more about this phone. You guys like it? I'll shut up.
No, that's just it. It's just like people do like it a lot, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of
Also,
those things where people, when you talk about horror movies and people don't name It Follows, like the It Follows gangs like yells at you
Exactly,
for not naming It Follows. Like that's what they
It's
are.
good to have it
They're
on the
like-
graphic. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
like they're like the two anon, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Well, I think
followers. Yeah.
A unique monster, unique concept, very simple, very just like unique. Like how far would you be willing to go to run away from it? I will say the one thing I did not like about the movie, I don't like a pool scene like that. I don't like a big electrocution.
Yeah. This is a great word of mouth movie. This is one that had like a wildfire, I feel like, as far as word of mouth goes. That's how I got recommended to me, was like, hey, you got to see this. You got to see this. And I feel like any movie that gets that type of love is usually warranted, if that makes sense.
Any good use of sex in horror movies? Because like, obviously that's an underlying theme in a lot of these is getting laid. Or I should say in the original, or it's not like a core tenet. Richard, am I misspeaking here? But like, just like young love and all that stuff. So the fact that like it's you're giving the young love is, you're giving that person basically like a death sentence.
Sex and
Yeah,
horror kind of like
absolutely.
they're connected. They're two sides of the same coin in a lot of movies.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
a strong movie though. Like I like it.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
the tall fucking guy it's terrifying.
This is a tough. Fifth round is by far the hardest pick because there's just a couple. I have like six. I'm excited to get to honorable mention, but
Yeah.
So what that was pick 23. We're on 24.
Yeah. So Richard,
Okay.
you could go.
Yeah, Carl's absolutely right. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go with the film from 2001 that I'm going to guess not everybody has seen called The Others. And this is a great psychological horror film. The premise is Nicole Kidman is this post-war mother of two, and they've got some sort of photosensitivity thing where they can't leave the house. But we don't know if maybe mom is making them stay in or if they really do have this thing. And she becomes convinced the house is haunted. And that's as far as I'm going to go for people who haven't seen the movie, other than to say that that's another one you're like, I did not see that coming. And to have, again, we've talked about this, to have an actor, an actress, when we're talking about world class, and Nicole Kidman, I think it's maybe one of her top 2 or 3 performances, because we're experiencing the entire story through her eyes, through her experiences. And it's a film that not all these horror films depend on acting. A lot of them do, but this one for sure. You got to have the right person in that lead role, and you can't go wrong with Nicole Kidman.
A very classic quote at the end. Yes. And I feel like this is like almost a forgotten movie for some reason.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. This is you already sold me on the movie. I got to see it now, but yeah, I haven't seen this one.
I mean, it has kind of one of those generic titles for one thing. People like The Others, it's like, okay, is it about aliens? What is it about? So, yeah, I mean, it did okay, but it wasn't a huge, did well critically, but I do feel it's not something that people talk about, even as, from other films we talked from that period, even something like Blair Witch, which came out a few years earlier, a completely different movie. But I think more people are aware of it than are aware of The Others, which is a much bigger budget, prestige, type of
with the
project.
star. Yeah.
It's solid. It's definitely it's solid. It was good when it came out. So, all right. To me, I need Mr. Irrelevant. It's hard because it's like, do you go nostalgia? Do you pick what you loved as a kid? Do you?
Scary. What really scared you, Ed? What scares you, man?
I know.
This is the guilty pleasure round. I feel like you pick one that means something personal, if anything else.
I know, but I did that in round 4.
I did in 4 and 5, I guess.
I know. So I did that in round 4. So I'm just going to take really strong in round 5, but it's kind of chalk and but whatever. You listen, if you spawn sequels, you're good. If you spawn a whole fucking world, you're really good. And it's The Conjuring. So, you spawn Annabelle, you spawn the Nun, it's just true. So much has come from The Conjuring. And rightfully so. That original chess scene when that fucking demon was in there was downright terrifying.
Yeah.
It's such a good 21st century horror film. So,
yeah, it is solid pick.
Mm-hmm.
One of those movies with not a lot of gore or anything or cursing or whatever, but it's rated R because it's so scary.
Yeah. And the lighting and the set design, some of the things we've talked about there are just perfectly done, just really well executed.
Yeah. I think it had to go. It had to be drafted in our draft. I feel like we would,
we would get shit otherwise. I feel like
I haven't seen it. You recommended it. So you recommend this movie.
You never really?
No, I haven't. I'm sorry.
Very strong.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. The Conjuring. I mean, obviously I've heard of it. See, this is where it gets really, when those ones get really weird, messed up. And so now you said it, a recent one that I watched was Babadook. And I enjoyed it. And it was scary and terrifying, but it was a little too... That's not gonna happen to me, but I don't know. I've drafted Hereditary. There's some other stuff. Now I'm going back and forth, but
well, I'll read them out one more time, then we'll do some honorable mentions, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
Here it is: KenJac, The Thing, Alien, Jaws, The Blair Witch Project, The Wailing, Robbie, Halloween, The Silence of the Lambs, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Get Out, Green Room, Carl, The Shining, Saw, American Psycho, Hereditary, It Follows, Richard, The Exorcist, The Omen, Candyman, Night of the Living Dead, The Others, Eddie, Scream, The Sixth Sense, The Ring, The Strangers, The Conjuring.
Great ones.
Does anybody want to lead us off? Richard, any honorable mentions?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I would go to a film festival with all these movies, guys. But Robbie, your list in particular, I could swap with you and feel just as good about it. I mean, that's really stellar picks. I came very close to going with Carrie from 1976. You know, again, Sissy Spacek, you know, a young actor that we didn't know a lot about, but you know, John Travolta's in there. I mean, but you know, that's another one that, man, what a build to that, and it's got a lot of really cool elements to it. So Carrie, terrifying film.
Yeah.
I think a couple ahead of like just off. Like I was considering Train to Busan instead of The Wailing. I think Train to Busan's like the best zombie movie of like the last like 20 years, basically. Other than,
Do you think zombie movies are scary, or are they more like their own character? Like,
it depends.
I think it depends.
Yeah, Train to Busan
World War
is
Z is like
very,
action
very
zombies.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's different sort of thing than I think what Train to Busan goes for. Event Horizon has always scared the living daylights out of me. Bone Tomahawk, S. Craig Zahler, I think one of the best directors working right now. He is so good. Dragged Across Concrete, The Brawl in Cell Block 99. He's so good.
Yeah, agree.
I Saw the Devil, another great South Korean one, and Midsummer. I feel like could have made it an appearance as well.
Yeah.
Midsummer is such a good movie. Like that was on the list as well.
Daytime
scary, very
daytime
scary
horror.
moments, but just like such a beautiful, beautiful movie. And I do like Florence quite a bit. Yeah. No one drafted Jason, right?
No. It's a Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Damn, he's gonna be off on another murder spree.
Yeah, he could be out of that lake, man.
You know,
listen, the first one in particular is pretty well done, but it just became this kind of killing machine thing, and you're like, stop going to the same lake. You know,
you got the space at one point, right?
Space on Jason X.
Yeah. I thought
Jason takes Manhattan. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like between him and Michael Myers, like Michael Myers is at least was like alive and in the mental institution. Like Jason coming back, that was something I don't know that kind of held it back. Pinface from Hellraiser. Pinhead, yeah.
So
I wasn't going to draft that movie, but that is by far the scariest motherfucker that's ever walked this earth.
Yeah, he is scary. Yeah, I had some recent ones as honorable mentions. Unless you want to keep going, Carl, I didn't realize.
I have. There's 3 more movies I want to shout out quickly. The Faculty, not scary enough to make this, but always needs to be discussed. And if you go watch The Faculty, all-star cast. I can do a lot of time on that. All right, then. Just going then number 2, the silver medal and honorable mention. I don't even know this counts is by far the creepiest movie. 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams. It's just like the weirdest fucking. Oh God!
Didn't expect that.
Yeah. Wow.
My honorable mention is Funny Games, 2007 with Tim Roth, and then the one that absolutely is the scariest, creepiest one is Hostel when they cut the Achilles tendon.
Worst.
Okay.
Gross.
I was passionate about those.
My recent ones, a lot of them are very, my honorable mentions are recent. So I have 10 Cloverfield Lane on there with, I think
that should not have been a Cloverfield movie. Can you imagine?
No, John Goodman gives an unreal performance in this movie. So does, I think it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Winstead,
yes.
Yeah.
Awesome performances. One of my favorites, Don't Breathe. I thought was a great horror movie.
Yes.
Eddie knows I like this one. And a super recent one that I watched literally this week. Went in blind. I specifically avoided all the trailers, all the posters, all everything. Barbarian. Holy shit. If you can go in blind for this one, that's a fun one to go in blind to. And then I had The Night House, another recent one that I thought was well done.
Got that over there.
2 complete guilty pleasures that are hit or miss for most people. Kevin Smith's Tusk and Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
Which is, you know, you say horror.
That's borderline,
I don't know.
guess,
That's a borderline one. I wouldn't have drafted it, but I love it.
The only one I just realized I forgot was Day of the Dead, because Day of the Dead. Have you guys ever seen that one? That might be the most grossest zombie movie ever made. Like the scene where the dude's getting his head pulled off and his vocal cords are like stretching out, and like it was like whoa, like that's that one screwed me.
Sadly, that was not a practical effect, so he's no longer acting. Went real method on that scene.
I have.
Sorry, go ahead.
I have 7. I have 7 quickly.
Yeah.
I have the original the first cassette only, I should say. The first cassette.
Oh yeah.
I love Tim Curry's Pennywise. I know it's not regarded as like a great movie, but Tim Curry's Pennywise was amazing. I Know What You Did Last Summer. I thought it was a good slasher.
Yeah.
Child's Play, another really actually cool Chicago movie.
My home newspaper, the Chicago Sun-Times. At one point, Chucky's like hitching a ride in the truck We had a lot
Yeah.
of fun with that, man.
I just interviewed Jennifer Tilly a couple days ago. You would not believe the biggest Chucky person on earth. Like
Oh,
she knew
really?
more about Chucky than I think the
Yeah.
most in-depth writers know about Chucky.
She's
Incredible.
a great poker player too. I played a lot of
She is.
poker with her.
Oh,
A
really?
lot of fun. Yeah.
She played with Smitty. Did you guys know that?
Oh,
her and
no, I
Smitty, her and Smitty went head to head in World Series of Poker at one point, and I forget what the story she told, but it's very
Oh,
funny.
cool.
I gotta look that up.
No
anyway.
shit.
Crazy.
Gotta shout out Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously.
Yeah.
Little kind of bullshit. That's not gonna make it on the graphic. That
Yeah.
could have been a freebie to Kate and the family.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a tough look for us, but a great.
Mhm,
Maybe if we want to put that on like the board or like brought to you by
Right in the corner.
Brought to you by Leatherface.
Yeah. Leprechaun.
I mean,
Yeah.
no. Tell the story.
I love Leprechaun. I have a dream that I will meet Jennifer Aniston one day and tell her that I loved her in Leprechaun,
She'll enjoy that.
and I just want to see how she'll react.
Okay.
And Paranormal Activity, just for the sake of the respect that they made her for 15 grand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the most
Absolutely.
profitable movies ever, I
I
think.
think it is
That's
the
absolutely
singular.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the singular number one.
And then last but certainly not least, Sleepaway Camp.
Haven't
But
seen it.
is that an Ernest movie?
Ernest goes to sleepaway camp.
Crossover.
Did anybody mention I've never seen this movie, but it came up in research and it looks fascinating. And they said this is like a must-see for horror movie fans. I have never heard of it though. It was Behind the Mask. Did someone bring that up? Behind the Mask with like Leslie Vernon or something? I guess it's okay. Never mind.
Haven't
When
seen
did
it.
It sounds like a fascinating concept, and then people were saying that like if you haven't seen it, I guess I can't really start talking about it now. But Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon, and it's supposed to be a documentary style movie about like a guy who watches a ton of horror movies and now wants to be the next great serial killer. So he's invited this documentary crew in, and he's going to tell them about how he's becoming this. So it's got high reviews and is considered a big deal with horror movie people. Never mind. No one's seen it.
None of us got Psycho, which is kind of surprising. Psycho would have been up there. It's an OG proto slasher, basically. Scanners is a movie that scared me a lot when I watched it when I was young. The head blow up scene, iconic in cinema, if you ask me.
The other one, you talk about. I had Psycho. I was almost going to pick, and I was going to go all the way back to the 1931 Frankenstein too, which is terrifying. Remember they creature features and all those things.
Is
and
it?
You go back there.
The way
There's
they
some stuff that happens in Frankenstein that they would never show now.
Well, I will say my mom recently told me she was terrified by Frankenstein, and I was like, "What terrified you?" And she was like, "He throws this girl into a well, and you think he's friends with the little girl."
There's a little girl who befriends him, but
he very gently tosses her into the water.
He flings her into the river. They took that
pretty
scene
gentle.
out for years before putting it back in because
It's
like
worth
literally-
watching to see how gentle it is.
Like, but he picks up this little girl. She didn't do anything. You're like, oh, that's so sweet. All of a sudden, she gets mad, and all of a sudden, she's gone. She's
Bride of Frankenstein up
just
there
like
too,
Alex Kittner and the dog in Jaws. She never gets out of the water.
I did just watch Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein this week, which I had never seen, and it's not scary. It's very funny, and it holds up. It's actually worth a watch.
That's funny.
All right, then. Richard, thank you for joining us, man. This was fun.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Pleasure
thank
meeting
you.
you, man.
KenJac, Robbie, thank you. Carl, thanks. All right, everybody. That's it. Thank you for listening. Have a happy Halloween. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.